So you've grown up, you're married. What are you both doing immediately after you get married?
Okay, so the first thing I did was I made curtains out of burlap and hung them on the windows, and they're still there.
No kidding.
The guy didn't change anything that we did to them. What else did we do? We had a bare rug on the floor. We had a little cone stove, wood stove, fireplace. You know, they had those little cone ones they used to make, and they had a screen.
What were they made of?
They were enameled metal, and we had a bare rug in front of it. The girls loved it, and I stubbed my toes on it a couple times, so we put it up on the wall, and it disappeared. We have no clue where it went. What else do we have out there? We had an outhouse in the beginning, but before we got married, Howie put in a full bathroom with a shower and a sink and plebe, and he put in running hot and cold water. So I had a stack washer dryer, one of those little stack ones that you could put like 10 pounds in of laundry. And so with two girls, two babies, you were washing laundry all the time. But it had a dryer above it.
First, when after Peggy and I got married, I was working in Gary Jacobson's shop. Then we built three or four of them in there. I got the idea from a machine that we used to shoe horses on at the ranch, and so I put one together. My dad helped me, and we put one together out of steel that was portable, so we could pull it around and shoe horses in different areas.
It was a portable shoer?
Yeah, it was portable. And the ones that I built, and this was, the first one I built was in 68, was it something like that? 68 or something like that. Anyway, it's still in operation. And the second one I built is still in operation.
For shoeing?
Yeah,
just for shoeing.
Dan Massey has it, and he still uses it to this day, shoeing horses. In fact, I saw him go by with it the other day when she was horses over at Rich Ranch. But that's, anyhow, so we were building those and keeping quite busy. And then we had the opportunity to buy, because I felt, working in Gary's shop, I was keeping his space so he couldn't work in there. And so we had the opportunity to buy a building here in town, just across the street from where we are right now. And it was, we didn't pay very much, $1,500 a day, which seemed like a lot in those days. And we had to do some conversion to it so we could work in it, and then started building surgery tables in it. And then I would drive into town to work, and then Peggy would take care of the house, out on the flat. And she took care of the girls, did all the bookwork, and did all that. She did a lot of stuff. It was very important to the business.
We had an office set up in the shop.
Yeah, we had an office set up here.
So I would come in periodically and bring the girls.
So how soon after you were married was Mary born?
2 years after.
And you were living on the flat, right?
Yeah.
And you described.
And Jesse was 18 months later.
Yeah, something like that.
Right.
They're just a little less than 2 years apart.
Right. And did you have one bedroom in that little house?
We had one bedroom, but it had a screen porch. Had an open porch, actually, in the beginning, that went across the front of the cabin. And so we bought windows and we enclosed that porch and made a nursery. And then it had a window, of course, because it was an outside porch at the first, from our bedroom out to the porch. So we would leave it open so we could hear the girls when they were little kids, that if they had to go potty or whatever, then we could go get them. And we'd taken the door off that went out to that porch and had our window open so the heat from the house heated the porch too.
And so Howie, you did all this work.
Well, not by myself. I had Jim Anderson help me with a lot of it. And a lot of it was Peggy's idea, because we were scratching our heads trying to figure out how we was going to expand. And so that was one of the ideas. And so we did that, got that put together so the kids had a place to have their cribs and stay in. And then as time went on, it ended up being we had one of them, we put two out there eventually, and so we had guest rooms. So we had guests, they could stay in one of the rooms and then the kids would stay in the other one. So basically it turned into like almost a 3-bedroom home, but the 2 extras were quite small. But they worked out okay. It worked out okay. But then we would travel from there working here, and Peggy did all of the upholstery work that we did on the surgery tables. It was all padded, and Peggy did all of the padding and sewing different materials, straps, and making halters and doing all that stuff for the stuff that was very important on the business.
So, describe first you had a shoeing table to finish the story of how what you created out of that. Because it took me a while to fully understand.
Well, like we'd said before, I was shoeing horses for Smokehouse or up the Rattlesnake. And Connie War came, one of the veterinarians, and was to work on one of the horses that had a bad cut on its shoulder. And I mentioned to him, I said, well, if you can wait a second, once I get this horse down, we can put this one down and you can suture him up. Well, and so I did, and then he got the horse sutured up, and I stood him back up on his feet and put him back out, and they tied him up. And Connie hung around for an hour and watching, and then after we had worked for a couple of hours, he asked me if we could build one like this for the new clinic they were building in Missouri. And I said, well, I could, and he said that you could make some modifications to make it a little more feasible for doing surgery work and different procedures with horses and cattle. And I said we probably could, and so we did, and set it up so that they could do different procedures on horses and cattle in it. And we built them for about 20 years. All we delivered them all in the United States and
shipped them overseas.
And
delivered them within the continental United States and quite a few into Canada.
And we'd take the girls that go with us. We had a
custom built pickup
camper built for our pickup, so that it would sit in front of a gooseneck trailer, and then we could put the surgery tables on the trailer. And then as we was traveling, the girls would have a place to play. They'd get on the bed and fiddle around, and we had a little refrigerator and a little cook stove and stuff so that we could cook meals, and they'd get to see all kinds of things along the way. And then as they got older and going to school, then it got a little difficult. Peggy had to stay home, and so we shipped. Other people helped us, and then we started shipping them because it got to the point where it was cheaper to ship them than it was to haul them ourselves.
But they were pretty big, right?
Yeah, they weighed a couple thousand. They weighed about 1.5 tons.
How did you do the shipping?
Well, Garrett Freight Lines was the first people. They'd come right here to Ovando and pick them up. I'd have them all set up on pallets, and we'd get a tractor or forklift and just shove them in one of the trailers, and away they'd go, and they'd deliver them to wherever in the United States. But that worked out pretty well. And then I'd fly down to set them up, which was, at the time, it was a little bit more economical to do that because flying was cheaper than buying gas at that time. And then I would only have to be gone 3 or 4 days at a time instead of, sometimes we'd be gone, when we was making deliveries, we'd be gone for 3 weeks on the road driving before we get back home. We always tried to sell more than one in an area, so that if we took that 20-foot trailer behind us, we could load them and then deliver more than one to make it more feasible, more profitable.
How long did you do this? How long did you make the deliveries? And
we did it almost 20 years.
Wow.
And then we had, it was a mistake on my part, put it this way. Peggy didn't think we should do it, and there was a piece of property come up for sale outside of town here. And we sold the business and the house, this house that we're in right now, and bought a house up Montour Road. And then we did that we were out there for how many years? 4 years. And in the meantime, the interest rate went to 22%.
Okay, now let me just get a date here. I mean, a sense like when you sold that place, moved here, it'll help you to remember
81,
how old the girls were, for example.
They were in grade school. They were still 8th grade, 7th, 8th grade, something like that.
No, they were 9, 10.
9, 10 years old. Yeah, they're just kids. Well, 80.
In the early 80s.
Early 80s.
Okay.
And the interest rates, got absolutely out of sight.
Yeah.
And this is a part of the story that's we don't really like to talk about all the time, but we do because it's been interesting. It's life. And it was a bad mistake on my part. I mean, really, because Peggy didn't want to do it. But she grew up on a ranch, and we always thought, well, it'd be nice if we could have a small place where she could have some cows again and start back to what she really liked to do. So anyway, we bought the property. Interest rate went to 24, it was 23 point something. And the interest alone on that was almost $2,000 a month.
In the 80s.
Just for the interest. And so consequently.
No, we didn't get paid for the shop business.
And we didn't get paid for the shop. The people.
You sold it, but didn't get paid for it?
We got paid part of it. We didn't get the full payment.
We got a very small down payment.
Got a small down payment. And then we had to repossess it. And then it started going downhill from there. It got worse. And we ended up being completely broke. We lost everything that we had. We had to file for bankruptcy, which is recommended that we file for bankruptcy.
Right.
By an attorney. And we got this attorney, went and talked to him. And so we filed Chapter 11, which is reorganization. It's not, being completely out of it. Well, and so we had some things we were working on to sell the property, and we could have come out of it even. We would have owed nobody anything, and the bankruptcy would go away. So we ended up in court, and that's when we started realizing we had the wrong lawyer, a long shot. And so we get into court, and we're having, in front of the judge and the bank's attorneys, and anyhow, we're getting in there. And then the individual we bought the property from that we were paying, and we owed him nothing at that point, threw in with him, and so we lost everything. We had nothing to sell. We had nothing. We had to.
We had no vehicle.
No vehicles. No home. No nothing. I rode out of there on my bicycle that my mother gave me when I was 12 years old, which I still have to remind me to never be that stupid again. And so I had to ride into town, into Ovando here, to borrow a vehicle so I could go find work, which I did. I was able to find some work.
Where?
Borrowed a vehicle for Paul Brenner. He was building tree stands at the time. And so I was welding for him, building tree stands and doing different things. And it wasn't easy, but we started getting kind of back together a little bit. And we had, when people don't understand that when you get into a financial situation like that, nobody will even talk to you about any kind of a loan or renting anything. It comes to the point where I understand how people become homeless when they come into financial stress, because it's very easy to be overnight living on the street, literally, and that's what could have happened to us. But fortunately, we had some fortunate things happen to us, and we were doing everything we could make a couple dollars at. I mean, we was just working at anything we could do, and we were renting a house across the road here from us, and
where?
It across the street, the one that Ben and Vicky live in now. We were renting it from some people from the people that had bought this house from us.
And we didn't lose the shop. We still had our shop.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you lost the shop. You lost the business.
We lost the business because.
And then, so we ended up.
Had you bought the shop outright?
Yeah, years before, yeah.
But I mean, you didn't know anything on the shop.
Didn't know anything on it. But then, of course, we had to sell it to satisfy the bank because that was assets we had. So we sold it, which got almost nothing of it. But then we were living in that home, and then as things went on, Peggy and I were doing all kinds of. Peggy was trying to make ropes for tree stands, for safety ropes to the point where the fingernails were coming off.
Toys for Swanson.
Is that
Terry
when, is that
Martha.
the period when
I
you,
worked there.
there when they were
Yep,
doing wooden
I
toys?
did that, and I worked for Screaming Eagle.
And what is Screaming Eagle?
That was
the
company I was working for, welding,
right,
helping them build
making tree stands,
tree stands and stuff.
archery equipment.
Archery.
So I worked for them doing stuff, and then I did the toys for Swan Woods and helped them do theirs. And then I worked down at Clearwater Junction with the corner.
Yeah.
Doing what?
The cashier. And
You mean it's
cleaning
at the store
at the
at
store on the
Clearwater
corner,
Junction?
yeah. For Stony.
So we got, anyhow, in this, just before that, though, we ended up with another piece of property. And it was, Peggy kept saying, well, we need to talk to them. They're repossessing the which is now a cafe and stuff uptown. And I said, well, they're going to listen to us. There's no point even talking. But she insisted. And so finally we got a hold of it, and beneficial was the people that had the loan on it. And so they came out to talk to us because nobody wanted anything to do with it.
And the tools, the house too.
In the house.
The house was part of it.
The house was part of it. And so
The house that you later lived in?
Yeah. Yeah.
Next door?
Yep.
It was a single property, the building and the...
It had only 7 windows that had glass in them.
yeah, the rest of it was cardboard. And
Now you're talking about the house.
yeah, it was in very bad shape.
And the store was in
Yeah.
bad shape. The building was in bad shape.
So what happened is, so it was Peggy's idea to talk to the people beneficial. And so he agreed to come out and talk to us. So he came out and visited with us. And he says, well, what do you think you can afford? And we said, we have no money, no down, we can't make a down payment. We can give you $200 a month, and that's about it. We can't do anything else. He said, I'll let you know tomorrow. And so the next day he calls and says, okay, you're on. You got it.
You suddenly had all that property.
Yeah, we had all of that property.
And explain what the building itself was then. It was a fairly large...
Okay, what is the cafe now when I was a kid, it was our grocery store.
Okay.
And it had been used for different things over the years, and it was in very bad repair. The part that's the challenge right now was sinking into the sunset.
Rotting away.
It was rotting away. It had tipped out away from the building, probably up at the top, almost 3 feet. There was a big gap in it. The part where the angler is had the walls had rotted from the county piling dirt up against them, and it was sinking in.
No foundations other than the center.
Yeah, other than the center. Well, no, the challenge one had a foundation, but it was a complicated thing because they were building the roads up, and they just piled dirt up against the building, and it just rotted the wood off above the foundation. Of course, it was sinking in. So we had to repair that, do a lot of repair on it. But mainly we used it different things. We got very fortunate. The state rented it from us.
When they were rebuilding Highway, working on 200.
Working on doing repaving and lifting and different things, yeah. And so that was very fortunate. They rented it from us, so that started getting us a little more income. And then in the meantime, we were making arrows too.
Yes, talk about the arrows. I won't lose track of the other part, but I really like your arrows.
So the other property that we had bought when we were quite young with 2 other partners, the museum, what is now our museum building, came up they had a public auction sale. And so Jim Anderson and Don McNally and Howie and I bought it. We had to put up $500 a piece to buy that building.
Now, when is this? Because you have more money now.
Well, this is...
that's when we were all working full time. We still were manufacturing.
When you're at the Screaming Eagle working now?
It was actually before that.
Before, we're still at the shop and we're building the surgery tables and stuff.
Okay.
The reason we bought it was somebody was going to buy it and turn it into a house and live in it.
Well,
or something.
A bunch of hippies.
Yeah, a commune type thing.
Right.
They were going to have a group home in Ovando, or
Right.
living quarters in Ovando. And so we decided that probably wasn't the best thing for uptown Ovando. So the three of us, three groups, got together, and we every dime we could come together, and we could come up with $500 a piece. That was it. And at that time, Jim and Don were both still working for us.
Mm-hmm.
Why were they working for you?
We were manufacturing the surgery tables, the shop. We had the
Yeah.
welding shop here.
We still had the welding shop at that
Yeah.
time here. Yeah.
Mhm. Jim Anderson and Don McNally.
Uh-huh. Now, Trixie's was not there.
No, it was
It was already moved to the highway.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is after.
After that.
Uh,
This would have been in 78, something like that.
Yeah, about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I always had the picture that Hugo Eck bought that.
Well, that's part of the
property.
story. Yeah, because when
Hugo bought it after we did all this.
Okay, so we're in the 70s now.
We're
yeah,
in the
in the 70s, yeah.
70s.
We're still
We'll stay with the arrow story. You started that, and
Okay,
we'll keep
so
that together.
We started manufacturing the hot ones. So we manufactured compressed cedar arrows. Howie designed a process to heat compressed cedar shafts to make them stronger and condense their weight so that they had a better flight pattern. And we were into archery hunting. So we manufactured arrows to sell all over the world.
Amazing.
And we set up a shop in the store, or in that building, and I made.
Because you owned it by now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Howie and Karen and Paul, because we went in on it together, Paul and Karen Brunner, and Howie and I, we had a partnership. And I would work it during the day when the girls were little and going to grade school. And then Howie and Karen and Paul would come in like at 5 p.m. and continue working until about midnight. And then I would go home and fix supper for the girls and Howie, and we'd eat. And then Howie would go back to work, and I would put the girls to bed and go stay home.
You have the bankruptcy, then you're doing all these other jobs. Now, have you been doing that? You've been doing the arrows before the bankruptcy.
Yes.
We did. That was all pre-bankruptcy.
And there were several things that caused us to go broke.
Right.
And the archery business was good.
It was
But
good.
the wood that we used for making the arrows is Port Orford cedar. And it's very
Limited.
compatible for that process we were using to make these arrows, or to compress them. And it got to the point where we couldn't get it anymore. And
where was it coming from?
It was
Washington?
coming from Oregon.
Portland,
from over by Portland, Oregon. And what happened was the Japanese started buying it and paying premium price for this Port Orford cedar. And what they would do is they'd make arrows out of it and burn them in religious ceremonies. But they could pay more than we could. We couldn't pay what they were paying. And so pretty soon you could not buy one piece of Port Orford cedar. So then we thought,
wow.
Boy, we got to do something different. And so we started working on different woods we could do this with. And the only other wood that was comparable was yellow cedar. And it comes from one of the islands up out of Alaska on the Aleutian Islands, in that area.
It was yellow cedar.
And at that time, you couldn't get a stick of it down here. There was just no way. Now you can go buy it down at the lumber store. But at
how
that
did
time,
you get it?
We just couldn't get it.
We had friends in Alaska
that sent us some to try, and it worked very well, but we couldn't get enough bulk. And then through all of the process of trying to make this stuff work, we were doing everything we could think of to keep it going because it was a good business. And we finally ended up it just finally collapsed. It just disappeared. We had nothing left as far as the archery business goes, because of the wood issue. Because of the wood issue, yeah. And so that was when then Hugo was wondering what we were gonna do with it, and I says, well, I'd like to restore it, but I don't have the money to, and he says, well, sell it to me and I'll take care of it.
So the girls were born when we were in the log house.
Right.
Well, when they started to get, Mary was going to start school, we thought we'd better get closer so that we weren't driving that gravel road 14 miles.
Okay.
But we did own the shop here. So Howie was driving
When did you buy the shop?
In
And
the
to do
70s.
your
in
metal
the
work.
early 70s.
Early 70s.
And you bought that for your business?
We
Right.
bought that to
For the
manufacture
metalworking business, right.
metalwork, the sewing table, the surgery tables.
Right.
And we bought that. So, and so when this house was coming up for sale, 511 Main Street,
Which is where you now live, but this was back,
but it was a one-room schoolhouse that they had moved in here
That had, but
they
And
had
you're-
moved the one-room schoolhouse in here from where?
from
That's-
Browns Lake.
Oh, see, that's all great story.
yeah, and the people that moved it in, had made it into a house. It was very small, but it had, had the, water and kitchen and, bedroom.
Electricity?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and electricity and everything, yeah. So we did, had to do some modification to it and everything, but it worked and kept us going.
And what grade were the girls in at the
Mary
time?
started first grade here,
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And where did they go to school?
right up
Walked
on the
up
hill
the
in the
hill.
Ovando School.
The present Ovando
Yeah.
School?
President Ovando's.
How absolutely wonderful.
And
They could, they could
Mary
walk to
absolutely
school.
insisted that she could walk to school by herself on her first day.
Didn't want us to take her up there at all.
And she did, and she went through every single mud puddle all the way up.
Oh, that's great.
Yep,
She was about 6?
yep, 6 or 7.
yeah.
About 7.
Yeah.
6 or 7 years old. Just took out the door and hiked up there, heading to school.
How many kids were in the school at the time?
Oh my goodness, not very many.
15 maybe.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah, at that time.
But there were quite a few in Mary's class because she had, because we had these little groups of kids that were all born when we lived on the Kleinsmith Flat. And so they all came of age and started school together. Tony and Janice's kids and Romnus, Gordy and
Yep,
we had
Who?
Romnus, Gordy and Ellie.
yeah.
Okay.
And so we had these people that don't live here any longer, or at this time.
that's good.
But they all had children, and so we had a group of kids.
About the same age.
Yeah, that were the same age, so we all they started going to school and filling in the classrooms, and it was like a new generation starting out the Ovando School and keeping it alive.
Oh, great.
And that's what's kept it alive all along, is the fact that families stayed and had children, and they kept the school going.
Wow.
Yeah, it's,
So that kind of sidetracked us a little
No,
bit. on
no,
the
I
story.
love, you do those. Those stories are wonderful.
And so,
So in terms of order, so you go from, you're here before Ben and Vicky's.
yes.
Now, why would you have gone to Ben and Vicky's?
Okay, so
that was after we had gone.
to Montour.
Well, you go ahead and do
Okay.
your order.
So, yeah, so the girls started school, so we sold the shop, and we got a down payment for everything, of $50,000,
Ooh, that
right?
was a lot.
Or
then.
30,000.
Something like that.
30,000.
No, 50. It was
So
50.
50, and so we were debt-free, so we purchased the property on Montour. We didn't buy it, we made a down payment.
And where on Montour roughly was it? Near-
A mile, 1 mile out on Montour Road from
From
here.
200.
Yeah.
From here. The house is gone. Somebody owns the property now, but yeah. And there's a huge barn out there when you go out Montour
The barn's
Road.
still there.
The barn's still there.
It's been rebuilt and everything. They've
And
done
it's
Okay,
been rebuilt.
okay,
and
that's good.
It belongs to the people that own Two Creek.
No, they don't.
Oh, no, it's something, but anyway, it doesn't matter. But yeah. We don't own it anymore.
Okay.
But so the girls, when
So
they
you're
started
in
school,
here,
yeah, we were here. But then then we bought the property out there, then we had to bring them into school every day.
And so how long were you there?
About 5 years here.
Okay.
This-
So up
as a
till
one-room
like
school.
Mary was about 12.
Mary, yeah, And yeah, well, she was, yeah, they were. And
Jesse 11.
then the place at Montour came for sale, and we had sold the shop, or had a down payment on the shop. So we used the money, the down payment, to purchase.
And why did you go there?
Okay, well, we had sold the shop and the surgery table business.
And why did you do that?
Because
did you sell
Howie
it?
was trying to get away from welding.
Oh, well, that's an important part of the story.
And Mark and Mary Woods, who's immaterial, but the people, they wanted to live here and build a business.
Live where?
In Ovando.
Wanted to live in Ovando.
Yeah, and build a business. And sell the surgery tables. And they came from the Midwest. We sold the whole thing and took that money and we purchased a down payment on the property on Montour Road. And then this house we rented for a short period of time because we hadn't sold it yet.
Right, yeah.
Okay. Then the people did not make the second payment on the business. And so we had to start the repo of the shop and that portion of the business.
And you're now in Montour Creek.
And we're sitting in Montour, but we can't make the payments out there because we weren't getting payments.
You repossessed the property which
We had
sold,
to
yeah.
take back the property we sold, so we had to go to
But
court.
why did you decide you wanted to leave here?
Because we had sold the business.
Oh, this-
And so we had to do the repo on the shop because they didn't make the payments. But the mistake we made was we allowed them to take the surgery table patents and business with them.
But of course, they had run it in the ground. There was nothing left as far as customers at that point.
So, and you had patented it, right? It
Oh,
was
yeah.
under your patent.
But so we came back with no income, no way to make an income.
Came back from Montour.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
it's around there that then the bankruptcy occurs and you
Exactly,
lose the Montour place.
Because everything just started disintegrating, you know.
And then you come here to Vicky and Ben's. Is that right?
yes, yeah.
Okay,
And then that's when we got connected with Beneficial Finance to
okay.
purchase the house and the log building uptown.
Okay, and,
The cafe side of the street.
yes, I understand, but to do it in order, didn't you say you did the museum first?
Yeah, we did the museum when we were living in this house before we went to Montour.
Okay, so you were here and you were in, did you still have the shop business at that moment?
Oh, let's see, yes.
Because you would have had income
Yeah.
coming in or
Right,
you
we
wouldn't have
did.
put down the
Yeah,
money
correct,
on that one.
Correct.
Yeah, and that was when, you know, we still had the shop, we were still living here, and that was when Hugo, that's when, after the arrow business had disappeared, we couldn't make arrows anymore.
How did you refer to that house? How do you refer to that house as it was then? Now it's the museum, but to you,
It wasn't a house. The museum was always a museum. I mean, it was always a bar.
okay,
It was never a home. Nobody ever lived in it.
Just the
Give me the name of the bar.
Brand Bar
It
Museum.
was the Brand Bar.
Brand Bar,
It was just the Brand Bar. It was just an empty
it
building.
had been Trixie's.
Yes.
Trixie had been in it at one
Yeah,
time.
before we bought it to make arrows. Yeah.
It was
Really?
always a bar downtown.
So you bought it shortly after she left it.
No, it had been empty for a while. She'd been up on the hill for several years.
Yeah, several
Okay.
years, yeah.
And,
Okay.
But it came up for auction. The owner was auctioning it off, and the bar and the back bar were in it. And when we were buying it at the auction, we didn't know what we were going to do with it. But nobody was bidding on it. And so Don McNally and Jim Anderson and Howie and I each had $500 that we could spend, that we had cash. So we bid it, and we got it for the $1,500, the building.
Wow.
But
And when you did that, the three of you, did you have a sense of what you were going to do with it right then? Because
oh heavens no, we had
Because-
parties in it. We had dances, and we'd have, there were some local kids that played music, and so we would pass the hat, and they would get whatever came back in the hat for playing the music. And we had parties, and
Oh,
everybody
but that's a great
brought their
story.
own drinks and foods
yeah.
and
That was a lot of
snacks,
fun.
and
So it was the social center of
it
town
was a
there.
social center, and nobody made any money off of it. It
But
was
it
a lot of fun.
Oh, that's a wonderful story.
Yeah,
Oh, great. That's great. I'm glad
yeah,
I'm
until reality
impressed.
hit home.
Then what?
Till the reality hit home, and we had to start making a living, and but at the time we had that. We still owned the shop down here, and we're
Yeah.
still manufacturing the
Yeah, you were
surgery tables
in
and
much
stuff,
better
so,
shape then.
Yeah, and
So at what point did you start the arrows over there?
I gotta go do something.
okay. Well, what happened was we were hunting, archery hunting at the time, and
Well, the place was just
it was
a fun
the party
place.
house.
Well,
right?
it was the fun
Right,
house.
and so we decided that the quality of the arrows that we were using was not very good. And so Howie decided that if we made them a denser wood, if we can compress them and made the wood denser and heavier, we wouldn't break as many, and the flight would be better.
Wow.
He's very creative, very inventive. And so he designed a piece of equipment, because we still had the shop, in the shop, that would compress them by, and he'll have to use all the terminology, compress them so they became harder and denser and stronger. And so we started manufacturing Ovando archery.
That's
which
what
were
it
the
was.
arrows, and that's where Ovando archery came in.
Well, that helps
And
me.
the arrows were
So then it
called
went from the fun
hot
house
ones.
to Ovando Archery.
And Paul Brenner was our partner in it, Paul and Karen, and being the developer type person he is, he put it out in magazines. So we got the advertising way before we had the production really processing properly. So we were working day and night, literally. I worked days and they worked nights, manufacturing arrows to ship all over the world, all over the United States, tons of them, thousands of them. And we called them hot ones, and they were compressed cedar.
Why were they called hot ones?
Because I don't know why we got the name hot ones. It just, Paul probably came
That
up
was
with it.
Paul's idea.
Yeah, Paul got the hot ones going.
That's good.
And so we manufactured these arrows, and like I say, I worked the days, and we had fletching wheels set up, and we did that for, 3-4 years.
Yeah,
Where did you get the fletching wheel?
We built them.
Oh, my goodness.
Howie built them. Howie was the
they
creator.
were real simple.
They were very simple.
But you designed it and built it.
And then you bought the jigs, and the jigs were expensive, but they were cast aluminum, and then they anchored to the wheel, so you could sit on a stool and turn the wheel and fletch, put one feather. I should show you, go get one of the arrows off the wall. Or can we reach one?
Don't
But
do that
anyway,
now, but that's
yeah.
one of the things I want to picture of.
Exactly. And so, and you'd fletch one fletch at a time, but we had 36
On the wheel.
fletching brackets to put the feathers on the wheels. So you just go around and put one feather on, and then when it was dry, by the time you came back around, the glue was dry, and you'd put the second feather on and rejig it, and then you pretty soon you'd have all of your feathers on.
How did you know how to do this?
Well, a lot of it was guesswork.
Yeah, live and learn. And it was a hot glue, so you had to be careful.
That's hot ones.
Yeah. And we manufactured thousands of them and shipped them everywhere. But yeah,
That's a great story.
we've done a lot of different things in life. The archery business was one of the most fun ones we did.
It was very enjoyable.
It was really fun. So, but we sold it because we were knowing that we had to get our ducks in rows a little better
Well,
than they
we couldn't
were.
get the product
And
to
we
make
could
them
not
anymore.
Right.
And
the quality of cedar anymore.
I spent several $1,000s trying to develop another process because
Yeah.
we couldn't get the wood, and I couldn't make it work. I was fighting with it and fighting with
We
it.
put a lot of money into
I put a
trying
lot
to
of money
find
into different processes trying to make this work, as compressed aero. And one day I'm working in the shop, and one of the local rangers came in with a guy, and we're visiting with him, and he goes, well, what you're trying to do is the stay pack process. I said, the what? He says, yeah, the stay pack process. The government owns the patent on it. And he says, but it's open to the public, because he said they owned the patent on it in World War II. And it's a long story. I could get into that, but I won't. And he says, I'll get you all the information on it. Well, he gets me a book on it, and so I'm going through the book, and all of the wood that I was trying to do the process with weren't compatible with it. You couldn't do it. It was not possible. And so I'd spent all this money trying to make it work on something that it was not possible to do. And then, of course, then it had all of the woods you could do it with, but by then, I had spent so darn much money I couldn't afford to spend any more on it. And it was just, so that's when we sold it. We just sold all the equipment and everything to some.
You were able to do that, you were able to sell the business.
Yep, and.
And-
you know,
and-
the fletching
it was,
wheels
there was no business to sell, we just sold the equipment.
Just the equipment, yeah, because the business was gone at that point.
And you sold it to
A
another,
gentleman down the Bitterroot,
Yeah,
and so he went on
a
making
friend,
arrows with
and he
it.
did.
You had a lot of friends. You probably, like you mentioned, friends in Alaska.
We had a lot of friends, and then
Were
most of them.
some of those friends people that you met when you were taking,
No.
things
We met them
around?
through the archery business.
well, the people in
And-
Alaska we met, another business we were in was the Amway business. And that's where we met those people, was in our Amway business. We met people from all over the United States.
Not the archery people that were in
No,
Alaska.
but that was the people that got us the
Right.
wood, though, were from Alaska. And then there was, of course, then there was people in Alaska that were in the archery business that we got to meet and got to be friends with. And they were super good people.
That's kind of amazing when you think that there wasn't anything like online then. I mean,
No.
so to have friends
No.
in Alaska
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
Ovando was a pretty,
Yeah.
when did you actually meet them in
Well,
person?
we had shows, so there was a longbow, what they call that, a natural,
Yeah, anyhow,
anyway, where people that used longbows would have, there was an organization, and then they would have get-togethers once a year. And we would go to some of those to promote what we were doing.
Your arrows.
And our arrows and stuff. And that's where we met all of the archery people from all over the world.
and then
Wow.
they would do, we
How
even had
exciting.
some of their national hunts were even right here
Right.
in Ovando. And
We
Paul
did
Brenner had them down here.
And so we had people come here, and then Paul hosted them on his ranch, and they had shoots. So they would compete with targets, not live ones, and they would scatter them out through the trees in the woods, and then they would compete, and we assisted in putting on the shoots. So we were part of the background, people setting everything up and getting it ready and making sure everybody stayed on the route that they were supposed to be on, and then they kept scorecards on their shooting, and they would go out through the woods and shoot targets, and
Wow.
we did that for a few years.
Yeah,
couple
it
years.
was a lot of,
But we met people from all over, from everywhere, that would come to those longbow shoots.
Was it still a bullseye target they were shooting at?
no, they were silhouettes, animal
Animal
silhouettes.
silhouette targets.
Made of,
Some were fiberglass and paper, some of them were paper, and,
and where did those
Different
come
things.
from?
oh, actually you could buy those.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they bought those from different distributors, you know,
Right.
because that,
Yeah.
it's for helping people
Well,
become better at it.
that's a fun
Yeah.
story too.
Yeah,
It was a lot of fun.
When you sold the equipment, what did you do?
that's when we sold it to Hugo.
Then Hugo
Okay, go
bought it.
ahead.
Okay, so Hugo X said, if you will sell me this building at a reasonable price, and he set the price, I will restore it and donate it back to the
You
community.
turn that.
Sold them, we sold them the museum, the
Building.
Brand Bar building.
Yeah, he said if he came up and asked us what we were gonna do with it, and I said, well, I'd like to restore it, but I just don't have the time or the money right now, and he says, well, sell it to me and I'll do it. and then I'll give it back to the community.
So that was just the idea.
Yep,
But what was it going to be restored to?
Museum.
museum.
Restoring it, he doesn't have the museum in mind yet, or he does?
Yes,
I
he
think he
does.
did.
He did
Yeah.
have.
Yeah,
But
Okay.
what he did first, because it had the, you know, it still had, even though the auction took the main bar out, we had put a bar in there and set it up because we were using it for fun. And he let Mary and Jesse keep it open because he had put in all of the collection of Mexican stuff from Mexico and stuff in it.
Sure,
So
from my neighborhood.
Exactly, and so we had kind of started it into a museum and collecting things. And so he put Mary and Jesse in charge of running it, and they sold lemonade and cookies in it.
That's so cool.
Well, they kept it open.
That's so cool.
And so that was during the summer, so they would do that in the summer, and they made money. It was like a donation can out there for their lemonade and their cookies. And I got busy making lemonade, cookies, and iced tea. And they would do that in the summer and keep it open. So that's what started it into a museum. And Hugo said, and Dorothy honored it, on his death, it was donated to the community for as a public building for a museum. And
That's a
that's when it
beautiful
really
story.
started putting it together.